I'm expecting some craziness and something feisty, and I just hope for a good way to end the day.
Amen. Amen on that one. Shade to kick off this series, ladies and gentlemen, spawning in the northwest position as the blue Terran player, very recently picked up by the new Shopify Rebellion. He is ByuN.
And in the bottom right side, a long time ago, whenever we talked about Chinese Protoss players, we were always talking about Jim and Maxet. These days, he is by far and away the best Protoss in China. It is Cyan.
As we kick off an awesome match. And how about that though, Kev? That announcement just came, was it yesterday? The Shopify team announcement, right? ByuN, Scarlet, Lambo, 3 fantastic StarCraft players. And now with the early departure of Scarlet, we're looking for ByuN. ByuN trying to carry that new, freshly minted banner. It's still got that fresh pine scent from the little thing they leave on it at the shop. And ByuN wants to carry that as far as he can. Of course, not just for his team, but for himself, because this whole tournament, in a weird sort of way, is kind of a redemption arc for him to see just how back he can get closer to the top where he used to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think he already displayed us how close he is, actually, in 2020. I mean, you don't win a tournament like Aces ROG by it just being a fluke or getting lucky. And on top of that, he won the tournament by defeating players of each and every single race as well, and he looked great from the beginning till the very end. Cyan is going to proxy his second pylon, so what's actually happening? We'll talk more about ByuN's greatness later, and we know how good he is and how far he can go. So it's a 1-gate, it's a fast expand, we're taking both gases. Is he actually still going to proxy his target? But I think it's too far away and it's a bit too late for Void Race, so maybe he just wants to go for some oracles?
Yeah, I think, right? You'd think he's got to be waiting for the 150 gas, which can only be the Stargate. But you know what, Kevin? Maybe this vroom machine or whatever it was you were talking about, the giant space laser beam unit, could possibly also be constructed from this facility, can it not?
Yeah, I mean, it is a possibility. You don't normally do it after an expand, though. But of course, if you want to sell it convincingly, if you want to make it seem like you're playing a normal game, this can actually still work. Because sometimes it's not all about how early a cheese can hit, but it's about how well you can keep it hidden. We actually know that ByuN is not playing an opening that's going to give him a whole lot of scouting information. He's going triple CC, no Reaper.
He's so greedy.
Did ByuN SCV scout Mapu? I'm sorry, matey, I wasn't paying attention. No, so ByuN doesn't know a damn thing. Now it will come down to, well, it is going to be an Oracle, like I kind of expected after the expand. Still a lot of potential, I think, here for ByuN, because, for Cyan, because there's no bunker here either, and that actually means that this Stalker can just kite for days and get a couple shots off. I find it crazy that ByuN is not building a bunker on Lightshade.
Yeah, any of these maps where you don't have a ramp that leads directly into the natural, it's so risky, because when you put your Marines here, Kev, guess where they aren't? Somewhere to defend against that Oracle. Now, this is a crazy fast +1 infantry upgrade, which means this missile turret for ByuN gets to be built faster than really any missile turret should ever be built in a Terran versus Protoss, and yet it seemed to be the right call. However, the Oracle was still able to get a few SCVs. Okay, well, the death there, you can't lose that.
Nope, you cannot. There is still some potential in the Stalkers, but I actually think the movement of Cyan and Stalkers was a little bit off. I don't understand why you would ever walk down the ramp against Marines only. Like, just stay on that high ground, micro your Stalker towards the third base at 9 o'clock. Doesn't make any sense to give up high ground vision, because now he doesn't really know where the Marines are, and now ByuN is getting a lot of extra time to get this bunker up. I mean, this now actually turns into a good start for ByuN. And that's a bit unfortunate for Cyan, man, because there was so much potential in his opening.
Yeah, when I think about Terran versus Protoss in a macro sense, you know, sometimes that conversation comes into which 2-base push will the Terran do, right? It's so common. We're so used to seeing the fast siege tank pushes with some early bio with stim, but instead, ByuN opens with the most greedy possible third command center, about as greedy as he could have possibly gone, right? And then straight away into the rest of his tech and infrastructure. But he kills that Oracle. He loses 3 SCVs for it, and I don't know. I love the position that he's in. Even if he's slightly behind in SCVs, he has that third mule, and he has it so much earlier than you're supposed to.
Oh no, he is absolutely economically ahead, Nate. You know,
Yeah.
these numbers, they do lie a little bit. 6 workers may seem alright for Cyan, but that's not what you're looking for when your opponent opened up with 3 command centers as quickly as possible. I'm totally with you. It is a good start for ByuN. It's just a shame for Cyan because there was more potential. Even if it wasn't about losing the Oracle, yes or no, obviously goes without saying, you need to keep that unit alive. It's very expensive, was a big investment, but the Stalker movement could have been a lot better. He should not have given up on the high ground, because then even 2 or 3 Stalkers can really start snowballing. Maybe ByuN gets the bunker up eventually, but not before losing 5, 6 Marines or a couple of SCVs, and Cyan just completely lost that ability when he went down the low ground.
Yeah, so we have the first Blink Stalker pressure coming forward, and I think the most important thing that's going to do is actually expose how fast the third is attempting to be landed. Of course, we know it's been done for a little while, but Cyan, I think Oracle probably saw it when it flew by earlier anyway, so he kind of has an idea of what he's up against. You want to dislodge the Terran off of this third. A lot of Protoss players try to use that opportunity to do it, but there's already so many Marauders. There's actually quite a bit here, and the other weird thing, Roddy, is that the +1 attack was already done by 6 minutes. He's got a strong army.
Absolutely. I mean, Cyan is doing his best here, trying to micro a little bit, but he's losing a couple of Stalkers in the process. And make no mistake, Stalkers are pretty expensive units. You can just be losing these left and right. I do like that Cyan is like, you know what, I'm a bit behind in this game. Let's just go up to 4 bases. That is a nice catch, but he's going to have to pay the price for it as 2, oh, it's even 3, 4 Stalkers go down. All right. I like the idea, Nate. Just didn't really work out.
Execution left a little bit to be desired. However, I was gonna say that's a great catch to be able to get the medevac, because ByuN has been very careful with his bio. As we can see, Stim kills your units. Is it a fun ability that makes them really strong and overpowered? Yes, but you need medevacs to heal those units so that they can keep on stimming. So getting one of those medevacs early leaves this army pretty hurt.
Is that just a robo in the bottom left? Or it should be a gateway, obviously. Yeah, okay, so just going for quicker warp ins. I mean, he's going to be able to spam Zealots for days. The problem, oh, he's not paying attention to his Stalkers in the center of the map. That's painful. I think like 8 or 9 Stalkers have gone down already in this game. That is simply 10 even. It's simply a few too many, Nate. You can get adventure with your Stalkers. I understand you want to buy time against the Stim bio, but I think losing 10 Stalkers is simply a little too much.
Yeah, that's a pretty hefty loss to make. As you were saying, the Stalkers are very expensive, and the only thing that's kind of working in his favor a little bit is, you know, that bio was actually so hurt. The medevacs have already burned all their energy healing them up, and it does take a little bit of the ability to keep pushing off, because that heal during the fight is really important, and a lot of this army is still not fully healed. But it's also possible that if ByuN, you know, with his crazy micro that he's known for, I mean, he could probably still make something work here, considering how much he's already killed.
I don't think he just can. I think he should, because his army is simply better. Now there are a couple of shield batteries nearby that could buy some time. Overcharge is one hell of a drug, but we're kind of fighting out of range of that battery, and these Zealots running in without +1 armor, they just disappear immediately. It seems like the counterattack is not very successful for Cyan at this point. Maybe this is a moment where you can make something happen as the Withermines are left behind. ByuN finding this base in the top right side. Maybe like, well, you actually went pretty crazy on the bases on your side of the map, but these trades are not very good for the Protoss, and that's an understatement.
Well, the Zealots are getting a little bit of harass on the other side of the map. 6 SCVs killed, forced them all to be pulled away from the third base, running all over between the third and the natural. So he got something done, but you're right, ByuN. Supply-wise, he's still feeling good. His upgrades are still fantastic. 2-2 is coming in, and that'll be done without too much time to spare. I think the medevacs getting picked off was definitely the biggest thing for Cyan, though, and how greedy that 4th base was and how early he took it has given him a lot of money to build those forces.
Yep.
But I think we can both say that when you get to like too close to max out supply, I don't think just Zealot Stalker cuts it anymore. No,
but I don't think he wants to let it get it that far. I think here at this point he's just hoping that A, he can stabilize at home, and then B, find some damage with these run-bys on the left side. So this is a very big moment. Will Cyan be able to hold again? Because if he does, then all of a sudden this game starts looking quite pretty for him. But his army is not that good, and it feels like it's in a very awkward spot. I mean, if your units are dying near an overcharged battery, Nate, you know you are very outgunned.
Yeah, and there's so many Widow Mines here. With that armory, you need to have the Observer to reveal it and kill it. Big splash damage across a lot of the Zealots. Stalkers are going to blink forward, though. The Medivacs are low on energy. The Marauders and Marines are hurt. So Cyan is actually going to buy himself more time here. Another 9 Zealots getting warped in on the top side. But
he's doing
Kevin,
good.
like we were saying, though, is there a transition that's going to come from this? If that Prism gets caught and killed, but all we're seeing right now is just those double forge upgrades and a lot of Zealots and Stalkers.
Yeah, but as long as ByuN's army supply is around like 70, 80, I do believe that Zealots, Stalkers, and a little Guardian Shield can absolutely get the job done. It obviously gets scary if ByuN starts being close to maxed out, more Widow Mines, a couple of Ghosts in the mix, but we haven't really reached that critical point yet, so I think there's still a time for these gateway units to shine. Another run-by is going to show up at a very unfortunate moment. I think ByuN's getting a little tilted about this game, be like, hey, I feel like I should have won it already once or twice. With a lot of firepower, overcharge battery, forward blink, Cyan holds again, and he's killing 21 SCVs on the other side of the map. The Danish Zealots are one hell of a drug.
Yes, they are. And you know what? It was so heads up by Cyan. He tried to get that gateway next to the proxy Stargate after the early game phase. And then as soon as that was shut down, he went straight to the bottom left, set up another gateway, and said, look, I want to counterattack. I want to harass you. I know that as long as I can keep this game disrupted and use my big economic, it feels weird to say because I don't really feel like he had that much of an advantage money-wise, but he has just been able to stop everything ByuN has thrown at him, even though he went for such a greedy build himself.
Yep. I mean, the timing of the overcharge has been pretty good, and I think ByuN made a little mistake at one of his first big moves when he left the Widow Mines by themselves. Obviously, there's still a lot of potential in this Terran army, and there's still a lot of micro potential, and we know what ByuN is capable of with these Terran units. Finds the Protoss army a little bit out of position, wants to get on top of the Stalkers, doesn't really get it, but does a very good job in reducing the Zealot count, which forces Cyan to warp in a couple of Zealots at home, but he's still killing SCVs with run-bys on the other side of the map, and I mean +3 melee is even close to finishing up. Cyan is putting up an amazing fight here, and this is actually starting to maybe look like his game a little bit, with double Robo Colossus kicking in soon.
I don't really see ByuN as ready for this at all. He's been all gas, no brakes, but I mean this army feels like it's been pretty low on the gas count for a while. We finally have the Ghost here. EMP on those Stalkers is nice, but they have the disengage with that blink. This 4th base, he's trying to turn it into an orbital. That's cute. One Zealot is more than happy to try and deny it for the time being. And ByuN he's aiming at this 3rd base again, Kev, but this has been overcharged central.
Yes,
there's no batteries this time, though.
Oh, he picked up the batteries before. I think Cyan wants to wait until the Colossi show up, but I think they're going to come from the bottom. That's a little bit awkward, as we can see a couple of Marauders getting on top of one of these Colossi immediately. Zealots forced to run into Widow Mines. Can ByuN get the 2nd Colossus as well? For now, the answer is no, but all that's left is at the top is 1 Immortal and a couple of Stalkers. That is not enough to deal with these overwhelming numbers of Marauders, and ByuN finally gets the fight that he's been looking for the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, stimming real hard with this army as the reinforcements come in. A couple of those Widow Mines are going to be able to rearm for a 2nd payload if Cyan chases him through the top side of the base. And I'm wondering, is he going to go try to shut down the 4th? Is he just going to make a play straight towards the natural? Colossus range is finally finishing, so those first 2 were not super impactful, but it's going to get just a teensy bit easier for Cyan to try and stabilize.
If those 2 Colossi that came out like 3 seconds too late, if they would have been with the main army of Cyan, I actually think he just holds convincingly there and then probably walks away with the game, as he's going to have amazing upgrades and double robo production and all the bases. It just was a bit awkward with the Protoss force on the top, the 2 robots at the bottom, the Terran army in the middle. Yeah, that's just not a very pleasant fight for these Colossi. That was a razor-thin window that ByuN just found there, but I mean, he dove right in it.
Yeah, if he had waited just a smidge longer, it would have been, what, 3 or 4 Colossi with range plus 3 attack, and then you're starting to feel real bad. But he knocked down 2 bases, 2 fully saturated mining bases of Cyan. He's going to come re-pressure and cancel, maybe kill that 3rd base one more time, and that's an excellent pickup for ByuN. This is where we're starting to see that Terran steam engine get rolling.
Yep, look at the minimap. There is blue moving from every angle at this point. Cyan busy dealing with his army on the left, but obviously ByuN still has that force active on the right side that's knocking on the front door of the natural. Some cool Colossi micro here, a couple force fields go down, but obviously Cyan has lost the beautiful position that he was in just a few minutes ago. Man, very close game one, guys. Obviously ByuN is running away with it at this point, but Nate, he once again really had to work for it.
Yeah, he's got the pressure on that outside right where that army was. He's got the army chasing him. He's got the pressure on this low ground base. These guys, the double drop in the main, pick off a few Stalkers and a Colossus. And that's always a good feeling when the Robo's right there and you can get that Colossus. I saw that it was just finishing, and he did manage to kill it, so that was fantastic by him. And man, also, can I just say, ByuN, like, bro, how hard would it be to throw down a bunker on one of these bases? Just something. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. These Zealots have been having a field day. ByuN's like, I don't care how much you make me bleed. He's like, I've got apparently an infinite amount to lose. And he's going to dive in with the rest of the army on top of the Colossi at long last. A lot was there to try and stop it, but not enough, Roddy.
No, one more force field was needed there to keep a couple of those additional Marauders at bay. ByuN will take the 1-0 lead here in the final best of 3 of the day, but like I said before, really did have to work for it again. At first, I was like, no, this start is very good for ByuN. He killed the Oracle, he's got an amazing economy, he's got a quick +1 like you pointed out too. He's gonna be fine. Then when he made that first proper push, when it's like a handful of Marines, quite a few Marauders, Medevacs, Widow Mines, I'm like, yeah, this is where you just win, right? Because Widow Mines blow up the Zealots, you pick up the last few Zealots, and then all that's left is a few Stalkers. But Cyan did a really good job in hanging in there and then finding damage with non-stop counterattacks over and over again. That really became a game, and if it wasn't for those, like, imagine if the Robos were the third instead of the main or the natural. I really think that's a completely different game, Nate.
Yeah, completely different. I am hearing we're going to go to a quick break before we resume this series, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. You're watching the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice. And we are back. Welcome to the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice. Here, Nathanius joined by Roddy. Sorry, I was trying to think if I was going to try to say something stupid there or not, Kev, but I decided against it. I've just been enjoying and being very excited for this series because that game number 1 was a lot closer than I thought it was going to be.
Yep, I think it was a lot closer than a lot of people expected it to be. It's been a long day for us guys. You know, the days don't necessarily start when the show goes live. But
No.
it's been a fun game, Cyan putting up a fight, and that's obviously the stuff we want to see. Like, even if we always have favorites and big underdogs, and in this case, ByuN is obviously an overwhelming favorite, you still expect the guys that fight all year long to make it to the grand finals of basically the EPT circuit to put up one hell of a fight, and that's absolutely what Cyan did there in game 1. It definitely gets me a little excited for game 2. Hope to see more of that. Maybe even see Cyan steal a map, even though that would also get a bit scary. But you know, I wouldn't hate to see it.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll see some of those units that just, you know, I can't remember the name of them for some strange reason, Kevin, but they are the source of a lot of frustration lately for some individuals out there. Personally, I love flashing lights. So what can I say? We are loaded in, though, to Pillars of Gold. And in the Northeast, leading the Series 1-0 is our blue Terran player representing Shopify Rebellion. He is ByuN.
And in the bottom left side, we are taking a look at the main base of our Chinese Protoss player. He's down 0-1, needs to win here if he wants to keep his tournament's hopes and dreams alive. It is Cyan.
All right. And, I mean, in that first game, ByuN went basically straight 3 command center rush, right? Like, there's not really a lot that build gives you other than stupid amounts of money close to that, what, 5.5, 6 minute mark where his production began to explode and he took that early third base. But I feel like it's got to be too risky to just do twice in a row against an underdog player, right? Because Cyan, if you're thinking about that type of strategy coming out of your opponent, you've got to be thinking about doing something aggressive to counter it, right?
Yeah, then again, I mean, these are series that you prepare for, and just because something happens in game 1 doesn't mean you're necessarily going to throw everything that you know out of the window, right? And be like, all right, that's it. Putting it all on the line with a Void Ray all in. And it's like, well, this game he actually just went for a Reaper, finds your proxy immediately and has the perfect response, if that's even possible. A couple Cyclones, a couple Bunkers, missile turrets can go a long way against that kind of stuff. So I don't hate to see Cyan just sticking to his game plan and going for a 1-gate fast expand here on Pillars of Gold.
I like it. It's a good map for it, right? You have the ramp that leads into the natural. That bunker we were talking about earlier isn't as important. And he can't see that probe. A cheeky little probe waiting for the Reaper to go out on the map so that he can try to harass and delay the natural expansion. But yeah, you're right. He did build the Marine. He didn't go straight to the reactor, so he should be able to finish up putting together this base.
That was actually one of my favorite little tricks. I think CJ and his hero was one of the first one to do it for a while. And I was like, hey, if you show up with your probe at that specific moment, which I believe is like 214, 215, the Reaper is often quite far out of position. And if they go Reaper Reactor, then your probe can actually just either kill an SCV if the Terran player is not paying attention, or at least delay the command center a little bit. But Terran players have kind of stepped away from it, and it's pretty much always Reaper expand Marine these days.
And we can see why, as you so eloquently explained, Kev. Stargate, still going to be the first tech choice for Cyan in this game. However, it's not going to be placed outside of ByuN's base. So I think this still probably leans Oracle, right? Because Void Rays, you're not doing anything like that, right?
Phoenix wouldn't be bad,
right?
I think Phoenixes are pretty good now. If this is a Void Ray, then I'd be like, what are they doing over in China?
What?
And Oracle makes a lot of sense, but I think Oracle into Phoenixes definitely has some potential. The Phoenix is becoming more and more popular in this matchup. Some of the European Protosses even say it's the best way to play PvT. And no, guys, that's not me.
Nice. Nice. Well, hey, I still think, there's plenty of utility with the Oracle. Good harass unit. It does get scouted by the Reaper. I guess worth noting that the shield battery was placed on that mineral line just in case something tried to be pulled there by ByuN earlier. And he started a Phoenix follow-up, then canceled it, started the Twilight, and I don't know. Is he feeling a little bit unsure of where to go next, or was maybe just for the drop? Like he's assuming, oh, his Oracle found it immediately, never mind.
Yep. I mean, I do think you want to get at least one Phoenix out if you can. Otherwise, these medevacs can just hover around your main base for as long as they want. Not much that a Stalker or an Oracle can do about it. I gotta say, I find the shield battery in the main base a little bit confusing. That's something that Protoss players like to do if they just grab their first unit and shade it to the other side of the map immediately. But Cyan didn't get that adventurous with his Adept, so I kind of wonder why it's there. Because he has now spent 200 minerals on shield batteries that, in all honesty, he didn't really need up to this point.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I was saying. Is he was like kind of worried about that drop. Then the drop didn't really come, but it's also worth pointing out, anybody, that Widow Mine's not really protected against by shield batteries. So I just figured I'd give that little pro gamer tip out there. So if the mines landed and burrowed, shield battery ain't doing nothing to save your workers.
If anything, that shield battery makes it worse because you can see that all the probes are kind of going via the left side, so they clump up a little bit more.
Oh,
having a shield battery there actually makes it more tempting to go for a Widow Mine drop. But obviously, when you build that battery, you don't know if you're dealing with Hellions or Widow Mines, so it's not very fair to go down that route. The TLDR is that Cyan is going up to 3 bases again, and he is starting to find himself in a decent spot, because the most important thing is obviously that you don't lose 12 or 14 probes against those Widow Mines. So we've got a game on our hands. It's just that if I was playing against ByuN, right, and I know that I'm the underdog, are these really the kind of games you want to be playing? I mean, in game 1 he made it close, so maybe he can do it again, but I think a couple of things truly went his way to make game 1 a bit closer than it should have been. As an underdog, I feel like you need a spicier start than this, Nate.
I don't think he can get up to that crazy fast 4-base, Mega Zealot, Mega Stalker, Double Forge play if ByuN doesn't go for that fast 3CC, right? So he has to be a little bit more ready to deal with that stim attack coming quite a bit earlier than it ended up being able to hit in the first map. So that medevac moves out over the Adepts. That is going to draw the attention over. But I wonder now if the rest of the army is still going to move out and maybe catch something off guard?
Okay, Cyan is paying attention there, so will blink away, doesn't lose anything. Drops, as another Widow Mine connects with an Adept, I believe he dropped a Revelation on some of these units, so you can start kiting a bit perhaps with the Stalkers. I mean, blink is done, but this is truly where you want to buy some time, because just Stalkers is not really going to cut it against 5, 6, 7 Marauders with Stim, and Zealot Charge is nowhere near done, so Cyan needs to buy time, but this is not going his way. Another Widow Mine trying to connect. It's not pretty. I mean, his economy is looking good, Nate, but I think his army is very crappy at this point as he misrallies the Stalkers. Cyan is in all sorts of trouble, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of Widow Mines to anchor this down, and Phoenix is going to fly over the army, maybe trying to bait a pre-burrowed mine, but there are none to be baited, Kevin. And puts a mine on top of the other ramp. The Oracle burns its energy there, which may end up hurting him. He scans, gets the stasis ward, so no chance on the army freeze. And you were saying, I mean, it's just bio stimmed versus gateway units. And as these Widow Mines creep closer and closer and that shield battery overcharge ends, I'm not sure there's enough to stop this.
I don't think there is. There shouldn't be. At least that battery is putting in some serious work, and it allows the Stalkers to just kind of stand here and fight. There is an Immortal in the mix, though. And that's going to help a little bit in taking care of the mines and B, especially dealing with some of these Marauders. Cyan once again doing a very good job, because at one point he was 40 army supply down. That's a devastating amount of units to be down. But battery overcharge is amazing. Bought enough time for him to warp in a few more units and make sure that this game goes on for a little bit longer. I was very worried there. I'm actually kind of impressed by how Cyan is handling these little skirmishes.
Yeah, he's done very well here. And hey, there must always be an overcharge ability for the Protoss players. That defensive overcharge is very strong at holding off and helping to keep, especially those Immortals, that Immortal you were talking about. Very, very healthy and put together. And things get a little bit tough, right? This is a big ranged army, so ByuN mostly has to rely on Marauders, which these Immortals love to shoot. He's going to target one down. Good grab.
Yeah. Excellent target fire on one of those Immortals. That's a bit risky, because imagine if you barely don't get it. Barrier is pretty powerful too, but ByuN does find it. Obviously, Cyan has to be worried about these medevacs potentially picking up these units and going for the main. I mean, there is enough medevacs to do so. Instead, ByuN is finding some success from the low ground, and yeah, that actually works too, right? Who cares about dropping in the main if you can just kill buildings from the low ground?
He's doing the most that he can with the positioning that he's been afforded, and I can't complain about that at all. The number of zealots is getting rather large, though, Roddy. So if a fight can be forced in a somewhat open area, those charge lots love to have a date with the Marauders. But weirdly enough, the Stalkers are not in a good spot to be covered by them just yet.
But the Stalkers are near a battery once again, and that's going to help keeping them alive. ByuN is getting some very good trades and doing a good job in making sure he's not taking too much damage at home. But Cyan holds. I mean, that's still very impressive. And his first Colossus is out. He's playing a very different style than in the previous game, where it was all about low gas, mass gateway units. This time he's stacking up a bit more, and he has made it into Colossi without being really too far behind. I mean, Overcharge is amazing, but I'm still impressed by how Cyan is just hanging in there.
Yeah, I can't believe how long he's been able to stay alive, not only in the first game, but here as well. I felt like there were a couple of opportunities for ByuN. You said it earlier, right? 40 army supply difference, and that has not deterred Cyan from continuing to bring this game closer and closer to that equalizing mark. When you get maxed out at 200, you start to trade a few units out and work in your other tech, High Templar, etc. But if you ever feel like you're behind and you can grind it out to a late game big army supply situation, hey, that's a whole lot better than dying at the first push, which it seemed like ByuN almost made happen.
If you guys join us a little bit later, you're wondering how did ByuN end up in the lower bracket? Well, the first series of his tournament didn't really go his way. Lost the TVT against Dream, and actually definitely struggled with Dongregu as well in the first round of the lower bracket. But things are looking up for one of the Korean fan favorites, as ByuN is starting to take a pretty healthy supply lead. Does walk into a stasis here. That actually could mean the end of a couple of Marines and Marauders. Look at Cyan. He too is relentless with his little counterattacks, but it feels that ByuN is anticipating them a little bit more this game than he was in the previous game. Sensor Towers help with it too.
Yes, they do. That vision, whatever, quasi-vision, whatever you want to call it, it's difficult to overstate the value of a heads up on an incoming attack. And speaking of, this Zealot just barely manages to run under these 4 medevacs that were getting ready for what would have been a potential slam dunk doom drop into the main, while a split off force hits the third. I mean, that's a ragtag assortment of Terran units if I've ever seen one, but not having it all together may make it a little bit harder to break him. I'm not sure. What's
the Viking count at? As I believe we have a little pulse or something is at least lagging on my side. It's Indy. Okay. I was like, is it me? Is it you, Nate? Who is it? Does ByuN need a pulse?
You know what, Kev? That's why they don't have us connecting directly into the games for this, right? We've got our fancy little feed thing set up so that we can kind of watch everything without having to worry about it. I was saying before, I'm like, we've got so many programs and stuff running for us to be partaking with the way that everything's been done, so that we can have access to all of the different feeds. I'm like, adding StarCraft to the mix on that, I'm like, I'm pretty sure we would have had a cheeky crash or two.
Absolutely. I wonder what kind of cup Cyan has. Must be a very green cup, right?
Yeah. Well, maybe he's just what teams have green colors? Maybe he's just he's a Jets fan. That's all, Kev. It's just, and the greatest thing about being a Jets fan in front of a green screen is no one knows, right? So thankfully it all gets deleted and no one has to see your shame. I'm not sure that that's Cyan's team, though, personally.
I know you're a big fan, Nate, but I think it's going to be pretty tough to find a lot of New York Jets fans in China. I'm sure there is a couple out there, but I honestly don't think so. And I highly doubt they're playing StarCraft 2 at the same time, Nate.
Yeah. True point. Okay, we are back into it. So we've got that big Marauder force on the west side. He sees those Stalkers. He says, okay, this is the part of the army that you want to fight with your split-off force. It's all the armored units, not a lot of the Zealots, and the Colossi aren't there, too. And meanwhile, if he can pull the rest of the defending forces over to that side, this base is going to be a real big target for ByuN. Here he comes. There's a couple of sentries and disruptors here.
A couple of Stalkers going to blink in the main, and Cyan did have free supply to warp in Zealots, so he's actually kind of in an alright spot to deal with this. The Colossi are starting to participate in this battle, but the fight on the bottom right is really not going Cyan's way at all. He had 1 or 2 Purification Novas. It seems like they didn't really find the connections that they're looking for. EMP lands on the additional disruptors, and ByuN gets 2, maybe 1 more. Yes, he does with the Widowmine. How often do you see that?
And another one is about to be armed again, too. Needs to get the detection over there or use one of the disruptors to kill it. But they've all been focus fired down, Roddy, as the rest of the reinforcements come over from that west side. I think that leaves that base exposed now, too. So he comes in. He's starting to deal with the zealots that have been warped in to defend. And ByuN is really starting to attack Cyan, getting himself a nice, comfortable supply lead.
Yeah, truly a beautiful game coming out of a Korean Terran player. He's so good in staying in range with these Terran units, picking off targets that are just going a little too far forward, but rarely overextending and rarely overstaying his lead. And he's just slowly but steady securing victory here. There's not really many things that Cyan can do anymore in this game. He's down 17 workers. For some reason, he's trying to get resonating glaive at depths, and that's not something we see very often either. One Nova does connect there with a couple of Marauders. That's cool and all, Nate, but I feel like it's mostly for show. I think Cyan kind of knows that the writing is on the wall for this one, even though ByuN is starting to get a little bit careless and throwing away a few too many units, perhaps.
Yeah, I think that's one of the easy kind of traps to fall into as a Terran. You start to feel like the ball is rolling, and all you can think of is, if I can just get one more push on it, if I can just run up to it and give it one swift kick, it's going to go twice as fast down the hill. And that's of course the moment where you slip and fall, and something can, you know, get a little bit dicey. And if you're Cyan, you want the Colossus count up, the Archons, all of the AoE, because at any point, one or two good hits with these disruptors could start to turn the tides back into the Protoss' favor. But he's looking for some miracle disruptors, some M-canning disruptors now.
Yeah, the problem is that those are not very easy to get against someone like ByuN. Like I said, he's an absolute master of range in this game. He knows where he can be with his ByuN units, and he knows when to get the hell out of there. Picks off the Nexus, is gonna get a few more Zealots too. Could maybe get one or two of those Stalkers that went a bit too far forward. Like, there's a lot of potential in the army of Cyan, but you kind of need to let the Terran make a little slip-up. And ByuN just doesn't really make a whole lot of slip-ups. He's not gonna stand there and let you land your dream Purification Nova. And that's kind of what our Chinese Protoss needs at this point.
Yeah, needs to spread like 3 or 4 disruptors out across the entire army of ByuN, and then I think we're back into an even situation. But unfortunately, it's not quite there. ByuN even going for the corner scan. He's like, okay, is there a hidden base? Why is he still in the game? And I mean, he's still in the game because he's got disruptors and his life's on the line. So Cyan is not looking to give up anytime soon. He's bringing the fight. And like we're saying, if he can land a couple of big disruptor shots, anything is possible. It's looking a little bit grim.
I mean, all year long, these guys fight to make it to this tournament, so obviously you're not going to leave early if things don't go your way. But Cyan knows that he's going to need a little bit of Protoss magic, and it doesn't seem like ByuN really wants to give it to him. A few more disruptors do get picked up. For the winner of this series, that journey will continue tomorrow, where Hurricane is waiting in the lower bracket round 3. So another Protoss awaits potentially for ByuN, who seems to be very close to closing this out at this point. Even EMPs, the overcharged battery, and that is going to do it. That's all, Zero. GG.